Welcome to the Good Divorce Show, where we can help you learn how to navigate the journey of divorce with less conflict, less debt, and equip you not to just get divorced, but also learn how to be divorced. Your host, certified divorce coach Karen McNenny, shares her wealth of knowledge, gets advice from other relationship experts, and interviews couples who learn how to have a good divorce, so you can too. Now here's your host, Karen.
Hello, welcome to the Good Divorce Show. Thank you so much for setting aside some time in your day to chat with me, Karen McNenny, your Good Divorce Coach, as we help guide you through a process with less debt, destruction, and despair in your own good divorce journey, remembering it is one of the options, folks. And today I have a guiding light for us. Jennifer Lee is going to be chatting with us a little bit about some money smarts. She is the founder of Modern Wealth, a Sarasota-based financial firm with a focus on guiding women through life's toughest transitions. But I am guessing that this is applicable to those gentlemen who are out there listening with us today as well. And for more than 30 years, she's worked to encourage men and women to face financial decisions head on and empower them to do so with confidence. She works hand in hand with divorce attorneys and coaches, such as myself, to help clients navigate the tough financial decisions during what is a really emotional time. And she is the author of the book, Squeeze the Juice, which offers an approachable look into tackling financial preparedness with ease. And I have spent time with this book. There's wonderful worksheets. It's really digestible, and I encourage you to find it. We'll hear more about those details as we chat with Jennifer. Welcome to the Good Divorce Show.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Now, you are one of those folks who identifies as someone who doesn't just understand money, but kind of likes the conversation around money, and not in that greedy way, but it can be empowering. And I am guessing that there is some story, some origination story in your history that really helped you identify what you call, we can work for the money, we can plan for it, we can strategize for it, and in the end, that money can benefit us. Would you take us back in time a little bit around that origination story and what brought you into this field of expertise?
Sure. So, I from a little kid had multiple jobs. I remember rolling coins on Saturday evenings for my dad. I remember going to the office with him. As an adolescent, I started to get one or two jobs. I was always trying to make a buck so I could buy things that I wanted, right? I didn't want to be dependent on asking mom and dad for something. So I had to figure out a way to earn a little bit of money, whether it be selling Christmas cards or Girl Scout cookies or whatever it was, to get something out of a magazine that I would earn, to, waiting tables and having multiple jobs. I've just very much been comfortable around money. And I think, I think it all goes back to, what is your money story? And everybody has one. And when I say that, what I mean is, what is your very first recollection of money? Is it of a parent having difficulty paying bills, or being able to do something for the family? Or is it of abundance and just money being available and accessible all the time? What is that story? And when you can narrow that down to your very first memory, you can really understand your adult perspective, and how you see things, your job, your assets, and so on. So for me, I was comfortable at the beginning. What's that?
What was that for you? You talked about rolling coins for your dad. Was he a businessman?
He was an advisor. He was in the financial services business, but more than that, he was very a type. I'm a very type A personality, but he was a man, and like 3 times the type A that I am, and he always was about practical things, about doing something functional and good in your time. So, Saturday night when I'm a little kid, staying at home with my grandmother watching TV, he wanted me to be doing something. So he wanted me to be counting coins and rolling them, and just very pragmatic. I think, when I think back on memories about money, I remember in kindergarten when they brought actual coins into class. They had those worksheets with the little, oh, this is the cool, what's up, what is this? It's a quarter or it's a nickel. And I remember when they brought in real coins, so there's just always been a comfort level that I've found in my career is not shared among that many people. And so it's wonderful in my business to be able to help translate people's resources into what they want. And I do all that money stuff in between.
Sure. Now, there are those of us, and I'm sure someone else listening, who their money story was either they were kept ignorant around money or there was a lot of scarcity around money. They moved into a relationship that became a marriage where they still didn't have knowledge or control or understanding of money. You referred to this as sometimes we're the financial ostrich. We just put our head in the sand and hope it'll all work out. But divorce is going to pull that head out of the sand, and you got to start facing some realities. Can you share with us a little bit as you work with, let's call them the financial ostrich, those individuals that through their divorce journey for the first time are starting to have to gain a different consciousness around money? What are some of the things that you do to lead them that our listeners could always apply to their own life?
Sure. And this is normal. Understand that being an ostrich when it comes to money and finance does not mean that you're not intelligent, that you're not capable, that your experience and your perspective are not valid, because they are. And honestly, most people know more than they think they do. It
Mm,
just can be intimidating in my world of financial planning, and the industry can be intimidating with jargon and language. But it really boils down to, well, first I want to tell your listeners that, number one, don't be scared. um,
mm,
it's very digestible. It's not rocket science. We're just trying to get to a solution of, what are your resources, what do you have, what's your income, what's your earning, what's your assets, what are those things? And then what do you want? Well, I want to send my kids to private school. I want to be able to travel every year. I want to be able to retire when I'm 67. I want to live in the family home. What is it that you want? Then we can make those things work. And my job, or the advisor's job, is to help you understand and translate your resources into what you want and make it as efficient as possible. That's all. It's not that complicated. And a good advisor is going to educate you about all of that stuff in between so that you can make a decision, and then you can forget it until the next meeting. And then the
mhm.
good advisor will remind you what we did and why. And about the third time, my clients will say to me, Jen, don't tell me that again. I know, I get it. It's this, 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 and this. Okay, good. You got it. So it's not that scary.
Well, there are, going upstream a little bit, as you say, first we just start with getting clear about what you want. And I certainly know, particularly folks of a certain generation that maybe were the unmoneyed, um, those that were more in the dark financially, they don't actually know what they want. They don't even know what the possibilities are and what to be imagining. What could you lay on the buffet for us to consider? Maybe it's this that you just named a few, but in terms of investment and the power of that and how to take our money and to know that it can become realized in possibility.
Sure. And I am a very possibility and future oriented and hopeful person. So, whatever the scenario, you can always dig yourself out. Um,
Oh, that's
we
so encouraging. Do you hear that, listeners? You can dig yourself out. Whether you're coming into divorce with debt or you're leaving with debt or you're just not financially, this is one of the what happens in divorce. We go from sometimes a two income household to a single income household or a really limited income. Maybe our retirement got divided in the course of divorce. So I love this encouraging spirit that you can dig yourself out. So carry on. Tell us some of the how we do this.
Sure. So, first what we want to do is we want to assess those things. So, in a perfect world scenario, um, and talking about your process, it's fantastic. You're meeting with both parties. In a perfect world scenario, I like to say, you fell in love with this person. They were the love of your life. You got married, maybe you had kids, you had this committed relationship, and now for whatever reason you're no longer in love. That's okay, but leave with grace, right? And so it's wonderful that you're talking about and sharing stories about a good divorce. To me, that's a good divorce.
Yes.
um, so when it comes to money, what we need to do is assess what you have, because you're right, we are going to have to probably divide that in half. um, and so what does that look like? Does that mean that you may have to have a smaller place to live? Does that mean that you won't have to have a smaller place to live, but you won't have as much income? Does that mean you'll have a chunk of money and we need to invest it over here to kick out income so it's there for your life? I use the analogy in my book about your money, this pot of money. Let's say your divorce settlement is $1 million, and we put this pot of money over here and we make it a machine. So this machine, this investment vehicle, kicks out income. Okay. If we don't take more than the income it generates, the machine will always be there. Okay. And
I
that's something important to remember.
and I think a lot of people don't even understand that's how it can work. I just took a couple across the graduation line of divorce. Dad was the business owner. Dad managed everything. Mom kind of had an allowance. And now suddenly she had this big pot of money. And she was ready to just like start going and buying whatever. And I said, no, no, no. We're going to take that, right? Because she had a Jennifer Lee in her life. It wasn't me. I'm not that expert, but I know that we need them. And this idea of the machine, and literally, can you explain to us the magic of compound interest and how this works? Like, let's really drill it down. How does that machine work? How does money make money for me? That doesn't make any sense.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing. So when you're working a job and you have a 401k or a retirement savings and you're putting money away each pay period, I like to think of that as you're putting nuts and bolts and sheet metal and you're building a machine. You're building this little machine. That's your IRA, your retirement account. You may also have other personal savings or resources from the sale of a house or a business. That's a personal machine. So all of those things, in an ideal world, they're next to you and they're working while you're working.
Mhm.
So it's growing and building on itself while you're earning an income and adding to it. So you mentioned, compound interest and earnings. Let's just look at 2024 as an example of a year in the market. So if you had a moderately invested portfolio, a 60% in equities and 40% in bonds, more than likely your account grew by at least 12%. And
Okay.
that's fantastic. When I took
2024 was a good year for
Those are a great year. I like to tell people that when you have a machine and this has to last you your lifetime, you need to anticipate only spending 5% of that every year. Earnings, okay? In a year like last year, so if I'm working with a client and we're living on the 5% earnings, in a year like last year where their account did 12%, I might say, Karen, I know you talked about wanting to do a trip in the next year or two. Why don't we take some off the top because the market overperformed? And let's put that on the side for that goal you have because it was great. And I don't know what 2025 is going to produce. I think the projections are X, Y, and Z, but I can't guarantee it,
Mhm.
right? So my job is to navigate your goals, again, what you want. So your machine, you only want to be spending the earnings, and you want to be conservative with that. If you
Right.
went in and started spending the meat of it, oh well, I'm going to buy a second house or I want a new car and I'm just going to pay cash for it. Well, now that 5% it's going to earn is less because your account balance is
Mhm.
less.
Yeah. It really is magic. And for those of you who might be listening and thinking, I only understood half of what Jennifer just said, you're not alone. And that's why we build teams of support during your divorce journey. And we're going to come back after our break, and Jennifer is going to dive in a little bit more about kind of this messy middle, the triage of money and what to do when you're going through the divorce process. And before we take our break, Jennifer, because some busy folks don't always get to part 2 or they got to come back, but I would like you at this time to also tell us where people can find you and your book. And then we will remind folks at the end of the show as well.
Sure, I appreciate that. So I have a website called squeezethejuicebook.com. So you can find all my information there. There's also a Calendly link there. So if you wanted to schedule a 15-minute, no cost, no obligation answer to your burning question, I'm happy to answer that. You can email me or schedule a meeting.
Squeezethejuicebook.com. And when we get back, again, we're going to dive into some of the specific logistics while you're going through the divorce process and money is in limbo and getting moved around. Stay with us here on The Good Divorce Show.
Are you thinking about getting divorced? Before you call a lawyer, call the Good Divorce Coach, Karen McNenny, a certified divorce counselor, co-parenting specialist, and mediator. Karen's signature Good Divorce experience will guide you through your divorce journey, from the day you make that difficult decision to the day the decree is signed, all for a predictable fee. The Good Divorce Coach will teach you and your partner how to get divorced and be divorced with less conflict and less debt. Visit thegooddivorcecoach.com to get in touch with Karen.
Now, back to the show with Karen.
Hey there. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Karen McNenny, your Good Divorce Coach here on The Good Divorce Show. Today, chatting with Jennifer Lee, who is author of the book, Squeeze the Juice. She is the founder of Modern Wealth, and her financial firm really helps folks move into a place of making decisions with confidence and empowering them. Whether you came with a lot of financial knowledge through your divorce, or you feel like you are in a new landscape, Jennifer and her team could certainly help you. Welcome back, Jennifer.
Thank you, Karen.
During the break, she and I were just reflecting a little bit about the kind of divorce, the type of the divorce, the team you put together, the lawyers that you engage, and how long actually you choose to spend in your divorce. I'm really a believer that in the same way you planned your wedding, you can design your divorce. And you can be, have agency in that. You don't have to hand all your power over. And I think that you have a similar philosophy when it comes to your money, of empowerment and autonomy. How do you speak to your clients about that? And how do we come to realize that in our life? Because I think most of us feel like our money runs us.
Yeah, I think because I work with a lot of non-moneyed party, there is a lot of foundational education, right, around how to leverage it, how to position it, and so we can make good decisions. The most important thing is, number one, understand what you're entitled to. Okay, that is entitled to. If you've been married 30 years, your spouse built a business, but you were the stay-at-home mom and you have resources and the IRA is only in his name or her name, you're entitled to half of that.
Right.
More than likely, you're entitled to half of that because you were part of the family unit that accumulated these resources. So, number one, make sure you understand. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just was going to piggyback on that because I recently was working with a couple, and the moneyed business owner who's been out there trudging away is like, I don't even know why my spouse should get any of this. It's not like they did anything. And I want to say, other than diapers, dishes, your meal, your laundry, like you entered into a contract of understanding. The moneyed person, you might be listening and having that same narrative right now of like, yeah, I don't know why they're entitled to any of it. There wasn't a reciprocal agreement that was made. That one person, if you have children, and not all of you do, but either way, whether they're explicit or implicit agreements, that brought you to this place. And a division of assets is what I say is fair and appropriate, not always equal. And I think the law even will say equitable, which is different than equal. So we're looking at what is fair and what's appropriate in that mind. So that's one thing to really be thoughtful about either moneyed or unmoneyed, that there is going to be a division of assets and we need to be clear about what that should be.
I think that's a very valid point. And, in my marriage, I am the moneyed party. Okay.
Mhm.
So I'm very clear that if my marriage wasn't to work out, what I would be not just legally mandated to do, but what I believe is appropriate.
Right.
And it comes back to your integrity. It comes back to that whole beginning of, this was the person, you're going to spend your life with. I
Mhm.
realize marriages don't work.
Yeah.
But there is a quid pro quo, and there is a shared energy toward the family unit and what you've accumulated. So if you've been married 20 years, or you've been married 30 years, um, that was the deal,
That's
right? Your spouse did the things that you didn't do because you were at work.
unless you made some other deal premarital. And, sometimes that prenuptial agreement gets a bad rap. Uh, but I think we underestimate the contract, the business financial contract we're making when we get married. It's so easy to get married. One piece of paper and $50 will probably get you there. And to get divorced, to get unmarried is very complicated and often quite expensive.
Yeah.
So being more mindful upfront, I think this is a great reminder to all of us. Now, once people are in the trenches of the divorce and money's going to be divided, maybe there's been shared bank accounts, we start living separate, it takes some time. This financial triage that you talk about, could you unpack that a little bit further so our listeners can think about what they should be paying attention to, not just what the settlement's going to be, but what are we doing in the messy middle?
Oh, for sure. There's depending on the type of divorce, there's a variety of different things you need to pay attention to. If everything is transparent and you're working with somebody like yourself, Karen, and they're working toward the same goal, it's a little easier because then it's just a financial neutral like myself looking at resources and saying, okay, Mrs. Smith, what is your life going to look like? Where do you want to be? And figuring out how to use those assets. Mr. Smith, this is what you're going to end up with. This is what it's going to look like. And working with them to then be able to divide that. If you are in a little bit of a contentious situation, or you're living separately and one person is beholden to the other for money, you have to have some arrangements. You have to have some spousal maintenance. You have to, a lot of times I'll be working with one party and they'll be the non-moneyed party, and they'll say, well, my spouse is paying all the bills, but I have no cash. Right? He's paying the mortgage, he's paying the insurance, he's paying the kids' college, but I still have two nickels. I don't have two nickels to rub together. It's a problem, right?
Yes.
So your attorney can, if you go that route, your attorney can get you file for spousal maintenance, so you have something. I had a client who their divorce went on, it seemed like forever, and really for no reason. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on the divorce, and he didn't keep more than what the court would have said you're entitled to, and she didn't get more than it, but they just wasted $400,000 on attorneys.
It's
That's a
hard.
bad divorce,
I
right?
think
So
it's malpractice. I'm just going to say it.
it's just
That is not responsible lawyering on behalf of your partners. That if we draw
it's
out the
it's
battle,
not responsible lawyering, and it's it makes me crazy from a financial perspective, because I don't care if you donate it somewhere, but why are you wasting $400,000 when you're going to end up in the same place?
that's
And
right.
you could have been done.
It could have been done. And if you have children, those funds, it's less for your children. It's less
Yep.
stability for them. It's one less, year of dance classes, money into their college fund, ability to help support them as they get their first car, all of those things that we do to launch our children. You're really stealing from the family as a whole. And I really look at the health of the whole family. Even if that family lives across two homes, you are still one family. And even if your marriage is done, you still have a forever relationship if you're tied to children. And we live in an economic society, so the finances are going to matter. Now, when you talk about this spousal support, is that a temporary agreement until everything is done and signed and dispersed, and then there might be some other arrangement post divorce?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's a temporary arrangement and a stipend as you go through the process of figuring out how you're going to divide assets and coming to agreement, whether it be a mediation, um, or ultimately with the courts. But it's a temporary spousal support so that that spouse can maintain some semblance of livelihood, particularly when they are non-money, when there's no income coming in, right?
Right. It's a real deal. Like, I maybe need new shoes. I got to buy prescriptions. There's groceries.
Groceries. Yeah. I
So
mean,
fundamentals. I'm not talking about your Prada shoes there, girlfriend. I'm saying, like,
yes.
you have to be able to function. I think of it like an allowance, right? That
Yeah.
just in the simplest terms, but I'm gonna back that up, because an allowance is that thing that our
Yeah.
connotate parent-child relationship. This is a parent-parent relationship, and you are entitled. It's appropriate for you to have access to those cash funds.
Well, think about it this way. So let's say that you are in a marriage and the income earning spouse makes, just for simple math, $120,000 a year, 10 grand a month. 10 grand a month comes into the household account. It is a marital asset.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So really you're entitled to half of that. Now you got to pay the bills, right? Let's pay the bills first. And then let's say there's $6,000 left over.
Mm-hmm.
3 is yours, 3 is his.
Yeah.
Now, the person earning the income is not going to feel that way. I understand that,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't make it any different. So if the person who's earning the income keeps it all and maintains it over here and just pays your house bill, he or she may be buying other things, living large, because they're in control of the money. And that is not fair or equitable. And that is not leading with love either. So,
Well, and one story I recently heard was, woman was the moneyed earner. It was stay-at-home dad, and part of those monies started to be invested into her new relationship.
mhm.
And plane tickets were being bought for the
Yep.
new, and husband was like, hell no, that I'm not going to start paying for their massages and their dinners and their date nights. That's not going to fly at all. So, we had to put up some really tight boundaries and agreements, and for good reason, but
Yep.
so much is shifting all at once. It can be really disorienting.
It can be disorienting, and unfortunately, what happens is you can get divorce fatigue,
Oh,
right? If
oh,
you are, the gray hair, the extra stomach acid, the stress that divorce can put on you, is palpable. And that's why you need a team. I think you need a team that is supportive of you, advocating for you, empowering you, and holding you to the line. I know I would need it. I would need
mm,
to be able to reach out to somebody and say, "Oh my God, I'm just ready to have this be over and forget it. I don't care about the 401k. He can keep it. I'm moving on." But you need a Jennifer to say, hold on a minute.
take a breath.
Take a breath. This is you're entitled to this. I don't care if you give it to your kids. I don't care if you give it to a charity, but you are entitled to this. So let's just take a breather and a pause and figure out what's really happening. And let's make sure that you don't leave money on the table, because you'll 2 years from now, you're going to say, God, I never should have done that.
Gosh, this phrase divorce fatigue. I've actually never had anyone talk about it on the show. I see it with my clients. I lived it myself. And you start to kind of wave the white flag, like, whatever,
Yeah.
I don't care anymore. Take it all. It doesn't matter. But then you're going to wake up a week later, a year later, 10 years later, and think, what did I do? And where was my advocate to help me at that time? That's when partners like Jennifer are going to be so important to boost you back up, right?
Yeah,
And so we can take a break, but you can't give up because there will be regret or resentment, and that's going to impact your future relationship. And you're going to
n-
carry around garbage that's just going to give you bad health, right?
for sure. And maybe you just need, if you have the means when you're feeling divorce fatigued, you need to take a break and take a little mini couple days away somewhere. If you don't have the resources, then maybe you need to call a bunch of girlfriends and have them over and connect and disconnect from the divorce process for
Yeah.
a little bit. It's okay to put it on pause, not forever, but for a week or two, so you can rejuvenate. That's okay.
I could not agree more. And if you gather with your circle of support, maybe don't spend all the time talking about your divorce or your former spouse, because
Yeah.
that defeats the purpose of going on a little divorce vacation.
Yeah.
And at the time that we're chatting, it's in the new year, but a lot of my couples, I just gave them a holiday vacation. Like, I'm not going to see you, we're not going to meet, take a couple weeks, enjoy your family, like give yourself a break, we'll come back fresh and dive in, because divorce fatigue, it is a real thing. Now let's put ourselves in the future thinking. We get to the other side, we have our settlement, and we're beginning to invest, and Jennifer Lee and her team and other financial advisors have our machine built. It's making money for us, we've got regular income coming in. Talk about this idea of the legacy of the post-divorce world, and you actually referenced writing your family love letter. What is this all about?
Yeah. We talked in the beginning how I have a comfort level with money, and I love talking about these topics. In a nerdy way, I would happily be stuck at a corner at a cocktail party or at a small dinner party, answering questions and talking about this stuff. It's a little. I'm a little geeky. I'm a little geeky that way. I like it. It's fun for me. It's entertaining for me. It's stimulating and so on. So you ever catch me in those places, please bend my
Where are you?
ear. Um, but because people aren't really comfortable with it, and my kind of philosophy and vibe is about, I work, I earn a good living, I work hard, I play hard, but my money is just a resource to get me things, and it's a resource to take care of my family, and it's a resource to have squeeze the juice experiences. Um, it's so in order to communicate about money in a very innocuous way and help my clients take care of their family, it's about figuring out what is their intention and what do they want for their family. So when you think forward and you think, if this is the last phone call I have with my daughter
Mm,
or my spouse or my business partner or my best friend, what do I need to tell them? What
mhm,
do they need to know about my value system? What do I want them to know about work ethic and contribution to society and love and relationships and giving back? What is it that you want to impart? That's what your family love letter is. So
mm.
um in my family, and the book starts out with this conversation. My dad was an advisor, but he was a yellow legal pad advisor. He wrote everything down on a yellow legal pad and had the meeting, and that was it. That was all. And so he didn't have like a well written out family love letter, but he delivered his in person to us
Oh,
when he was sick, and it's a profound experience to talk about, who impacted your life, what your values are, what your expectations are of your children.
mm,
One of his expectations was that, we would always retain some sort of relationship, because when our parents aren't here, who's going to force that grouping?
oh,
Um,
yeah.
Another expectation was my mother's never to use her Visa card when we go out to dinner. And so, it's a thing. It's like, oh, did you give them, sometimes she tricks me, but, 9 times out of 10, I get it. So, it's a way to communicate what you have, what you want for your family, So it also is very pragmatic in talking about, hey, I have this much life insurance and this is how that's being paid. You can invest it. Don't go buy a new beach house, but take the money, invest it, and live on the earnings. It talks about those things. So mine talks about who you can trust, um, you know,
Mm.
and it talks about giving the nieces and nephew money to learn to fish, not just to go do things.
Right. Oh, that's just beautiful. Well, here on the Good Divorce Show, we always like to end with a juicy nugget, if you will, around, either a philosophy or even an illustrative story of hope. And I'm wondering if something's coming to mind for you that you would share with our listeners today.
So, Karen, I'm thinking of somebody that I met with earlier this year. She had been married for 30 years. Her spouse is the moneyed party, owns a business. They have lots of property. She even didn't know how to get cash out of an ATM because she's never had to do that. There was always he just left money and she had money and all the bills were paid. And so, you know, when he comes to her and says, I'd like a divorce, that is a complete get on the couch and suck your thumb moment for this person, right? It's complete and utter overwhelm. So, once you're able to start having conversations and start laying things out and articulating what it is that your resources are as a marriage and what it is you want, and somebody like me can paint a picture for what you're entitled to,
Mhm.
it opens your eyes and you can breathe again, right? You can feel like, okay, it's not the end of the world. It's not fun right now. And we're going to have to navigate through this and I'm going to have to be held accountable. But, coming to it, it's not that far to the other side. Right.
Mhm.
So, so she's getting acclimated with money, with the resources that she has. She's getting clear about where she wants to live and what properties and what her expectations are,
Mhm.
instead of just taking what he'd offer.
Oh,
Right. And
the empowerment and the confidence that you talk about throughout your book.
yeah, so
Beautiful.
that's exciting to see people turn the corner and kind of come to the other side of, okay, now I know where I'm going. Right. That's empowering.
And I know
If
how to use the ATM.
right. I mean, if I don't know if this is you or not, but if I am stuck, I got to reach out to people. I got to reach out to people who know more than I do and get some context. It's like Battleship. I got to keep trying until I get the right space and it works for me. And that's where I think you can garner knowledge and garner relationships that will help support you so you can get to the other side, because it's not the end of the world. It doesn't feel good going through divorce, but you will be happier on the other end.
Ah, it's so true. Chatting today with Jennifer Lee, founder of Modern Wealth, located in Sarasota, Florida. Tell us where we can find you and your resources.
Sure. So I have a website called squeezethejuicebook.com. So you can find me there, my email and the book if you'd like. And then I also have a Calendly link. It's just Jennifer Modern Wealth. That's my company. And I offer a complimentary Squeeze the Juice call. So if we left you with a question that is specific to you, that you just need an answer, you can email me or you can schedule a 15-minute call, and no cost, no obligation. And I'll answer your question for you. And we'll go from there.
So appreciate you offering that out to our listeners, and really so much value in the wisdom that you've shared with us today. Thank you for joining us here on the Good Divorce Show.
My absolute pleasure.
And listeners, thank you for just honestly loving yourself enough to set this time aside to become empowered and confident about your money. And I remind you, everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.
Thanks for listening. Do you have questions or thoughts about this week's episode? Let us know by following the Good Divorce Coach on Facebook and Instagram @Good Divorce Coach, and leave a comment. And be sure to tune in every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific or listen anytime wherever you get your podcasts.